Hello everyone and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Destiny Sanchez alongside Tim Rogers and Logan Bourandas. Tonight we will be giving our picks for some of the top awards in the Big Ten. The Big Ten leads all conferences with 8 student athletes on the midseason team, while the Big 12 is second with 5. With this being said, Luka Garza was on the Runway Conference Player of the Year candidate to start off the year, but is he still in the driver's seat to win?
I think this one is a clear yes for me. There is no more improved player than Luka Garza is for Iowa. And ever since his freshman year, he's found a way to steadily improve himself up until where he is right now as a senior. And even as a junior, he averaged 23 points. He found a way to get even better. He's putting up 24 points for one of the best teams in the Big Ten in Iowa. And this Iowa team was seen as one of the best teams in the country. They've definitely lived up to that there. And it's because of this man right here, Luka Garza. And he's not even just in the running for Conference Player of the Year, because in my mind he's clearly going to win that, but National Player of the Year we're talking here with this guy. He's one of the best centers in the game right now, probably the best center in the Big Ten, definitely the best center in the Big Ten, and he is leading an Iowa team. He just even got the title of the team's leading scorer for Iowa. We got that over this past weekend, so he's doing it all for the Hawkeyes.
Absolutely. I mean, being 6'11", getting around 8.4 rebounds per game, it's an amazing stat that he's done, and like you said, he's improving every single time. He's averaging 24.7 points per game, and his three-point per shooting, which is a little underrated, has gone up by 10% from last year. He's shooting around from 56%, which is big numbers, and again, with Iowa, they're starting to really become as a good team in the Big Ten. You know, obviously you hear of like the Ohio States, the Michigans. Now Iowa's starting to go in their conversation, and you can't blame it specifically because of Luka Garza.
To have a good team, you have to have a good coach. So Logan, who do you think will be Coach of the Year this year?
I think you have to go Juwan Howard in Michigan. What he's been able to do this year in his second year with the Wolverines, they don't really have a true star on that team. I mean, their leading scorer is Hunter Dickinson, who has 15 points right now for that team. But what they've had to fight through this COVID pause and going up after that, they've had a tough schedule this year, and Juwan Howard has guided them through all of it. Right now, Michigan, they've only lost one game so far this season, which came against Minnesota. And then after their long COVID pause, they had an upset win, you could say, against Ohio State in their against Wisconsin in their first game back, excuse me. And then they beat Ohio State. So they've had some really big wins following that COVID pause. And Hunter Dickinson, what Howard's been able to do with Hunter Dickinson, he is right now probably the freshman in the conference, the best freshman in the conference right now. And if it weren't for a guy named Cade Cunningham, he'd probably be the freshman of the year right now in the Big Ten. But right now, first in the conference, the Michigan Wolverines are, and Juwan Howard, he's been able to do in his second year. He's the main reason why.
That's a good pick, but for me, I got to go with Brad Underwood here, the coach of Illinois. They're 16-5 this year and 12-3 in the Big Ten, second in the Big Ten right now. I mean, what he's done with Ayo Dosunmu, who a lot of people think could be fighting with Luka Garza for that Big Ten. I don't really agree with that statement, but I mean, the way that he's developed Ayo Dosunmu, as well as other great players. I mean, this Illinois team, they're averaging 82 points per game, one of the highest scoring, and to put that in perspective, every college basketball team, the average for them, they're averaging 68 points per game. So look at the scoring that he's been able to do, and when they play him, they're only averaging 66 points. So they have offense and defense, and I don't see why you can't put Brad Underwood in that conversation.
The Big Ten is, of course, one of the most competitive conferences in the country, as there's 3 teams ranked in the top 10 in the latest AP poll. Which team do you feel has improved the most this season?
For me, it's got to be Purdue. They in the Big Ten last year, barely going 500. It was not a good season for them. Now they're 5th in the Big Ten and are rolling through. Their offensive efficiency has improved tremendously from last year, and their defensive side of the ball has tightened up. They've needed to. I mean, they've been getting embarrassed last year, excuse me. They got embarrassed to very not so great teams. This year, they're going away and closing the games that they should be doing. A lot of teams have been having those struggles to close games, not Purdue. They've been able to do it.
Yeah, if it weren't for my last topic being about Michigan, I'd probably go with them. But what Ohio State's been able to do shouldn't go unnoticed. They were, I think, 6th in the Big Ten last year, and now they're inside the top 5. And they've had stints where they've been in the top 10 so far this season. And outside of that loss to Michigan, they have been seen as one of the more well-rounded teams in the Big Ten this year. They've had guys like E.J. Liddell and Dwayne Washington taking huge steps into this year, and that's two huge stars, where if you go into the Big Ten, if you're a team that has two huge stars, like that's going to be massive going forward into the Big Ten tournament. In Ohio State, they've managed to beat some of the top teams in the conference, beat Iowa, beat Illinois, beat Wisconsin. They've had some really good wins so far this season, and they could be a dangerous team going forward in the Big Ten tournament.
While many teams in the Big Ten have had great seasons so far, there are a few schools who have stumbled down in the ranks. Which teams have had the most disappointing season to watch?
It's got to be Maryland. I mean, going from 12th in the nation last year, one of the best teams in the Big Ten, to now going 14-10, not even ranked. It's embarrassing. I mean, yes, they did lose some very good key players like Jalen Smith and Anthony Cohen Jr. But, I mean, if you look at a big difference like that, Maryland's been known to be a solid basketball school. So for them to drop off like this, that's not acceptable for the Maryland University and what the standards they put onto their basketball team. And again, yes, they did lose some key players, but to go 14-10 right now, barely fighting above 500, not even one of the best teams in the Big Ten, that's just not acceptable.
I think for me, you got to roll with Sparty, Michigan State. They were co-champions of the conference last year, and now they're one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. To go from first to one of the worst, it's just not acceptable for Michigan State standards. They lost their top two scorers of last season with Cassius Winston and Xavier Tillman, and they even started out the season with some hype. They were 6-0 at the start of the season, and they had a huge win in the Big Ten ACC Challenge when they beat Duke, which at the time was seen as a huge win, but obviously we know where Duke's gone, but they were even as high as number 4 in the country. But ever since Big Ten play has started, they just found a way to slide. They had a COVID pause as well. They haven't been able to recover through that. But their scoring has just not been the same. There was even a game where they scored in the 30s against Rutgers, which is a great defensive team, yes, but it's Rutgers. Like, they're not one of the top teams in the Big Ten this year. But Michigan State, what they've been able to do, just how high they were last year, tying for the first place in the conference, to where they are right now, it's just disappointing.
I'm looking forward to see how these teams and players fare for the rest of the season. That's all the time we have for this edition of Penn State Sports Night. For Tim Rogers and Logan Bourandas, I'm Destiny Sanchez, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.